You're sitting at a red light. 2 minutes pass. 3 minutes. The sensor can't detect your bike. Traffic flows the other way, but your lane stays red because the system thinks nobody is there. So you wait like an idiot, or you risk the ticket and roll through. Here's the thing. In some states, that is not illegal. That is just one of 15 motorcycle laws that sound completely made up, but are 100% real. Some will save you tickets. Others will land you in court because you had no idea you were breaking them. And a few are so specific and bizarre, you will wonder who wrote this stuff. Quick warning, laws change and they are hyper-local, varying by state and city. Use this as a map, then verify your local code before you bet your license on it. I'm breaking down the laws that separate riders who know their rights from the ones funding their local police department. Let's get into it. Law number 1. You can legally run red lights in certain situations. Illinois, Missouri, Minnesota, and dozens of states have some form of this when you are stuck at a malfunctioning traffic light that will not change because the sensor cannot detect your bike. In some states, if you have waited a reasonable time, often written as 1 to 2 minutes, and the light clearly is not detecting you, you are allowed to proceed when it is safe. But the exact wait time and conditions vary. Why does this law exist? Because traffic sensors are designed for cars. Your 500-pound bike usually does not trip the magnetic loop buried in the asphalt. You could sit there until rush hour ends or until an SUV pulls up behind you. The law acknowledges that reality. That is how it became known as the dead red law. But here's the trap. You need to prove the light was malfunctioning and that you waited a reasonable time. If a cop sees you roll through after 30 seconds with traffic around, that is still running a red light. The law protects you when you are genuinely stuck, not when you are impatient. If it happens often on your commute, learn which intersections do it and consider carrying a dash cam. Proof matters if you get stopped. Know the difference before you test it. Law number 2. Helmet loopholes nobody mentions. Florida lets you ride without a helmet if you are over 21 and carry at least $10,000 in medical insurance. Michigan and Pennsylvania have similar rules with slight variations. Sounds simple, right? The problem is, riders hear no helmet required and think they are good to go. They forget about the insurance requirement. Then, they get pulled over, cannot prove coverage, and suddenly they are looking at fines and points on their license. If you cannot prove the coverage on the spot, the loophole disappears. The logic behind these laws is straightforward. If you are old enough and insured enough to cover your own medical bills after a crash, the state lets you make that choice. But enforcement is strict, and you need proof of that coverage with you. In some states, the law only applies to certain engine sizes or bike types. So yes, you can ride without a helmet in some places, but unless you have read the exact requirements for your state and you have the paperwork to back it up, you are gambling with more than just your safety. Law number 3. Passenger foot pegs are mandatory, even when unused. You strip down your bike for a cleaner look. You remove the passenger pegs because they are ugly and you never carry anyone anyway. Then, one day, you give your buddy a quick ride around the block and you get pulled over. In many states, if you're carrying a passenger, the bike must be equipped for it. Pegs, a proper seat, and sometimes even passenger handholds. It does not matter if they use them. It does not matter if it is a short ride. No pegs, no passenger. Some states go further and require a designated passenger seat, not just a padded fender or cowl. If your bike does not have a proper seat designed for 2 people, carrying someone is off limits. This law catches newer riders and custom bike builders all the time. You think you're just being a good friend, giving someone a lift. The officer sees an equipment violation and a safety hazard. That 5-minute favor just cost you a ticket you cannot talk your way out of. Those laws might save you hassle in the right situation. But these next ones are traps waiting to snap shut. Law number 4. Eye protection is required even with a windshield. New York, Georgia, and Minnesota require eye protection when you ride. And no, your windshield does not count. It does not matter how tall it is or how much coverage it provides. You need goggles, a visor, or shatter-resistant riding glasses. The thinking is that windshields cannot block everything. A bug hits you at 60 miles per hour, or a pebble kicks up from the car ahead, and suddenly you are riding blind. The law says your eyes need direct protection, not just a piece of plastic 2 feet in front of you. Here is where it gets stupider. Some states specify that your eye protection must be shatter-resistant, which rules out regular sunglasses. And if you are riding at night, dark or tinted lenses are illegal after sunset in several places. So the glasses that kept you legal at 6 in the evening could get you a ticket by 8 in the evening. Riders get pulled over for this more often than you would think. They assume their full windshield covers them, or they grab whatever sunglasses were lying around. Then, a state trooper spots them squinting into the wind and decides to make it a teaching moment. One cheap pair of riding goggles prevents all of that. Law number 5. Your license plate light has strict requirements. Your license plate needs to be lit by a white light only, and it must shine downward directly onto the plate. No colored LED lights, no blue glow that makes your bike look like a UFO, and no flashing gimmicks. A lot of riders modding their bikes love adding underglow kits or colored accent lights on the rear fender. What they don't realize is that if your license plate light is anything other than standard white, or if it's too dim to clearly illuminate your plate, you'll get pulled over. Texas, Georgia, and Arizona enforce this strictly. Some states even require that the light stays on whenever the bike is running, day or night. If you're thinking about going plateless or hiding the plate in some clever spot to make your bike look cleaner, that's a fast track to getting stopped, cited, and possibly forced to fix it on the spot. Or worse, towed if the bike isn't street legal. So while you're obsessing over the perfect exhaust tone and custom paint job, don't forget the boring stuff. That tiny white bulb keeps you legal. Getting busted for something that costs $5 at the parts store is the definition of a rookie move. Law number 6. Feet off pegs equals a citation. In California and Texas, officers can ticket you if your feet are not on the pegs while the motorcycle is moving. You might stretch your legs to relieve a cramp, and if the wrong officer sees you, that can become a citation for improper vehicle control. The law exists because proper foot placement supposedly equals better control of your motorcycle. That is true in theory, but it ignores real-world riding. Sometimes you shift your legs to change gear, avoid a hot exhaust pipe, or stay comfortable on a long ride. It does not matter. The moment you are not maintaining what the law considers full control, you are in violation. This is usually enforced when it looks unsafe, or when the behavior is extended, like feet dangling. Momentary adjustments are less likely to be cited. Do not hang your legs out like you are cruising on a beach chair. That will get you pulled over faster than doing a wheelie in a school zone. This law especially affects long-distance riders who need to move around to prevent numbness. You are not being reckless. You are trying to stay alert and comfortable. But technically, you are breaking the law every time you do it. Law number 7. Modular helmet legality varies by state. Some states require the chin bar on modular helmets to be down and locked while riding. Many riders do not know this applies to modular helmets. They flip up the front at stoplights for air or convenience, then forget to lock it back down. The problem is that an unlocked modular helmet does not meet DOT standards in certain states. If you crash with it flipped up or unlocked, It can create legal and liability problems after a crash, especially if your state treats it as not properly worn. And if a police officer sees you riding with it open, that is a helmet violation, even though you are technically wearing one. If you think these equipment laws are dumb, wait until the licensing rules. One mistake there can void your ride completely. Law number 8. Trikes and sidecars need a separate license. In California, you need a Class M3 license to operate three-wheeled motorcycles. A lot of states have separate categories for three-wheelers. California is just one clear example. You cannot just grab your regular motorcycle endorsement and hop on a trike. The DM5 treats them as completely different machines because the handling dynamics are nothing alike. No leaning into corners and no counter-steering the same way. A trike handles closer to an ATV or a small convertible than a traditional bike. The handling is different. The state figures if you're going to operate a different kind of machine, you need to prove you can handle it. Here's where it gets messier. If you take your motorcycle test on a trike, you will only be licensed to ride three-wheeled bikes. You will not legally be allowed to ride a regular two-wheeler without taking another test. That catches a lot of people who thought they were skipping the hard part of the motorcycle test by using a trike. So if you are thinking about getting into the three-wheeled world with a Can-Am or a custom rig, make sure you know what your state requires. Showing up with the wrong license could turn your new toy into an expensive lawn ornament you cannot legally ride. Law number 9. Side-by-side riding is banned in some states. Montana and Arkansas prohibit two motorcycles from riding side-by-side in the same lane. You need to ride in staggered formation or single file. The reasoning is that side-by-side limits your ability to swerve or react quickly, and that creates a safety hazard. The problem is that in group riding culture, side-by-side formation gets taught during slow parades or parking lot drills. Parades and parking lot drills are not the same thing as public road lane rules. Then, riders assume it is fine on public roads. It is not. Once you are out on the highway, especially at speed, some states want you offset for safety and maneuverability. Even in states where the law does not explicitly ban it, police can interpret side-by-side riding as unsafe operation, especially if traffic is heavy or lanes are narrow. That friendly cruise with your buddy could land you both tickets, or worse, put you in a dangerous spot if something goes wrong and neither of you has room to move. Law number 10. You can ride on the shoulder in certain areas. Most of the time, riding on the shoulder is illegal. It is seen as reckless, dangerous, and a fast way to get pulled over. But there are exceptions, very specific and very local, that can actually save you from a dangerous traffic jam. Minnesota's Twin Cities area has a program called Bus on Shoulder Use. During congestion on designated highways, motorcycles are allowed to ride on those bus-only shoulders. You cannot just jump onto the shoulder because you are stuck in traffic and feeling impatient. There are speed limits, signage rules, and safety guidelines you have to follow. The program applies only to certain highways and only under specific conditions, such as low traffic speeds. Break those rules, and you risk a ticket for reckless driving. The logic makes sense. In gridlock, motorcycles become vulnerable to rear-end collisions. Bikes overheat sitting in stop and go traffic. Letting them escape through the shoulder when done safely actually reduces risk and improves traffic flow for everyone. But here is the problem. If you are riding through an unfamiliar city and you see another biker cruise past traffic on the shoulder, do not assume it is legal. They might be local and know the rules, or they might be setting you both up for a ticket. If you are not 100% sure it is a designated program, do not touch the shoulder. That is how riders turn a traffic jam into a reckless driving stop. Now here is where the laws get really controversial. Law number 11. Lane splitting is legal in some states. California is the only state where lane splitting is fully legal and recognized in the vehicle code. Riders can legally ride between cars in slow or stop traffic. The idea is that it reduces congestion, prevents rear-end collisions, and keeps traffic flowing smoother for everyone. The California Highway Patrol even has guidelines for it. Stay no more than 10 miles per hour faster than surrounding traffic. Do not split lanes when traffic is moving above 30 miles per hour. Use common sense and do not be aggressive about it. But the story does not end in California. Utah has a version called lane filtering. It is legal when traffic is stopped at a red light and the rider stays under 15 miles per hour. Arizona, Montana, Oregon, and Minnesota have passed similar laws recently. The problem is, most riders do not realize how state-specific these rules are. Just because you filtered at a red light in Salt Lake City does not mean you can do the same in Phoenix without getting pulled over. The laws vary wildly and enforcement is inconsistent. Here is the rule. Lane splitting and filtering are not universal, and the legal version is usually slower, more limited, and more location-specific than riders think. If you're planning to split lanes or filter through traffic, check the rules for every state you are riding through. This is one of those things that can get you cheers in one place and fines in the next. Law number 12. Sidewalk parking is legal in some cities. San Francisco allows motorcycles to park on the sidewalk as long as they do not block pedestrian traffic. In certain areas of the city, it is completely legal to pull up on the curb and tuck your bike neatly out of the way. Before you launch your Harley onto the nearest sidewalk, understand that these rules are hyper-local. Just because it is legal in one city or even one part of a city does not mean it applies everywhere. One block over, you could be looking at a hefty fine or a towed bike. These laws were put in place to help with motorcycle congestion in urban areas where street parking is scarce. It makes sense. Why take up a full car space when your bike barely takes up 6 feet? But here is the trap. Police officers often ticket motorcycles parked on sidewalks just outside the allowed zones. Sometimes the signage is not clear. You might think you are in a safe spot, but if you do not know the exact rules for that area, you are rolling the dice. If you're going to do it, take 10 seconds. Look for posted signage, do not block ramps, and park like a bicycle. Tight, tidy, and out of the flow. Yes, sidewalk parking is a hidden perk in certain cities. But unless you have read the specific rules for that exact spot, do not assume you have a free pass. Law number 13. Tinted visors are illegal after sunset. We all love a good tinted visor. It makes you look like a fighter pilot, blocks the sun, and adds a touch of mystery when you ride into the sunset. But those same tinted visors are illegal to use at night in several states. California requires helmet visors to be clear or only lightly tinted when you ride at night. New York, Illinois, and several other states have similar rules. The reasoning is simple. Dark visors reduce your visibility, and lawmakers know how fast things go wrong when your field of vision is compromised. That stylish dark smoke visor might help during the day, but the moment the sun dips below the horizon, it becomes a liability. You could be riding blind into turns on unlit roads. You might not see debris, potholes, or animals crossing. And if you get pulled over after dark with a blackout visor, you're likely to get a ticket. Most riders do not even realize this law exists until it is too late. They head out for a day ride with a tinted visor. The sun sets, and suddenly they are squinting through darkness, trying to see the road. Or worse, they get stopped by an officer who has seen this mistake 100 times. This is the part riders miss. Enforcement is wildly inconsistent. Some officers will let you off with a warning. Others will write you up without hesitation, especially if they have worked accident scenes where visibility was a factor. And in some states, the law applies to all eye protection, not just helmet visors. If you are wearing dark sunglasses after sunset instead of clear glasses, that is technically a violation too. The smart move is to swap in a clear visor at dusk or carry one in your bag just in case. There are also photochromic visors that darken in sunlight and go clear at night. They cost more, but they save you the hassle and the risk. This law is not about control. It is about preventing stupid mistakes that get you hurt or fined. If you cannot see, you cannot ride safe. If an officer sees you riding with a blackout visor at 10 p.m., do not be surprised when those blue lights start flashing. And finally, the two laws that catch riders every single day. Law number 14. Exhaust noise limits vary by state. That $1,200 aftermarket exhaust system sounds incredible. It turns heads at every stoplight. But here is what nobody tells you when you are shopping for pipes. A lot of popular performance exhausts can exceed legal noise limits depending on the state, the year of the bike, and how the sound is measured. Some states use strict decibel limits, often in the high 70s to low 80s, depending on test method and revolutions per minute. In noise enforcement areas, officers do not guess. They use sound meters during traffic stops and checkpoints. If your bike measures over the limit, you can be cited, ordered to fix it, or, in aggressive enforcement areas, sidelined or towed until it is in compliance. That means fines, towing fees, and replacing the exhaust just to ride legally again. The trap is that exhaust manufacturers do not always make it obvious which pipes are street legal and which are track only. The label for off-road use only is often printed small for a reason. That sound you paid for can turn into hundreds of dollars in fines and a bike you cannot legally ride. Law number 15. Loud music while riding can get you ticketed. A lot of riders mount Bluetooth speakers or crank music through helmet audio and assume it is harmless. In several states, it is not. Some states prohibit wearing headphones or audio devices that cover both ears while operating a motorcycle. Others allow helmet audio, but enforce noise or distraction laws if your music can be heard outside the helmet or interferes with your ability to hear traffic. In places like California and New York, police officers can ticket you if they decide your audio setup prevents you from hearing emergency vehicles, counts as distracted riding, or violates local noise ordinances. And here is the trap. Even if helmet speakers are technically allowed, blasting music loud enough to hear over wind noise can be interpreted as unsafe operation. The law does not care that you were vibing to your playlist. It cares whether you were fully aware of your surroundings. This hits touring riders and commuters the hardest. Long rides, highway speeds, music turned up just to hear it. One stoplight interaction with the wrong officer, and suddenly you are explaining why you needed Metallica at full volume. The safe move? Know your state's headphone and distraction laws. If you run helmet audio, keep the volume low enough that you can clearly hear sirens, horns, and surrounding traffic. What feels normal to you inside the helmet can look reckless from the outside. That playlist you love will not help you in court. These laws separate smart riders from the ones funding their local police department. Leave a comment with the weirdest law in your state. Subscribe and like this video to keep exposing legal traps nobody talks about.